Welcome to Vaporize the Pain
with Robbie,
and Jay. Today we're joined by Riley Cote.
a Canadian-born ex-pro hockey player that took on guys like Donald Brashear, George Laraque, and Cote.
Enjoy the show, and as always, stay tuned for new episodes. So we're joined today by Riley Cote, famous NHL player, now a big cannabis activist. How you doing today, Riley?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Riley. We're just going to talk a little bit about your story and how it connected to Vaporize the Pain and stuff like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got from hockey into this field?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a cannabis supporter. From an early age, I was introduced to cannabis and the drug culture back in Canada, and immediately I gravitated towards it. And early on, 15, 16, 17, it landed up being more of a straight up recreational thing because I didn't really understand cannabis at all, besides the fact that it was illegal and it made me feel good, but it seemed to be always around parties, and I mixed it with alcohol, and I think I fogged out the spirit of it. So it wasn't until I really turned pro and I started fighting for a living, fighting within hockey, that I started really consuming cannabis to manage my pain, anxiety, help me sleep. And I did it sober. I would consume it without any other substances and alcohol and all that stuff. So I think I started understanding the therapeutic and healing properties of it all. But it still landed up being somewhat in the recreational sense with your teammates and stuff like that. But you still get the relief nonetheless in how you do it. And so cannabis consumer throughout my whole hockey career. That was like my go-to. But it wasn't until my sister got diagnosed with MS that I really started understanding and reading and researching, natural healing and nutritional healing, botanical healing, and all these holistic, alternative medicine practices that, kind of intrigued me. But it wasn't until my last year of playing in the NHL at the age of 28, I could see the wheels falling off the carriage. My physical body was breaking down, and I had a lot of questions. Why is this happening? I thought I was invincible. I thought I could sustain this. So I started reading about hemp seed protein and the digestibility of it, and the omega-3 fatty acids, and the fiber and chlorophyll, and as an unbelievable whole food source and protein source. So I started transitioning from animal proteins to plant-based proteins, specifically hemp, and this still consists of about 90% of my protein currently. And then I just started understanding cannabis. I started understanding hemp, and learning about the history of hemp, and how it was grown in a ton of different cultures throughout time. As a textile food source, building material source, but also medicine and therapeutic and you get the nutritional stuff. So I really started becoming extremely passionate about cannabis and hemp, and I always say the two together because I think the man has divided this plant into industrial versus medical, when I feel like it's just it complicates it, but nonetheless it is what it is. So it's become a passion of mine. Again, from starting from prevention of disease and health wellness standpoint. The nutritional profile of the hemp seed is certainly what I like to push always, and then understanding the CBD and the anti-inflammatory properties and neuroprotectant properties of cannabidiol, also including stemming from industrial hemp grown CBD, as well as CBD derived from medical cannabis. But there is a difference now within the laws and what you can and can't do. So I just become extremely passionate about this. I started a 501c3 called the Hemp Heals Foundation immediately after I retired, actually in 2011, and just trying to educate people and make people aware of this. And most people don't even understand prohibition at all, and they don't understand that prohibition affects them whether they like it or not, whether they know it or not. And someone knows somebody that's been incarcerated by the war on drugs, and someone knows somebody that's been sick and been using toxic medicine or highly addictive opioids or expensive toxic treatments, when they could have used cannabis and had a spirited life or a spirited death. In fact, instead of going out completely fogged out and zombified. So, all these things put together is just kind of my mission in life, you know what I mean? And I also see a market for, integrating cannabis and hemp with sports and athletics, as a recovery tool, managing, I mentioned them earlier, managing pain, helping with anxiety, helping manage sleep, stimulating a healthy appetite.
Definitely.
So, it's become a passion of mine, and no matter what I do in life, it's always going to be somewhat integrated with these two things because it's on the daily. It's part of my life. It's my I consume hemp seeds, probably close to 40 grams of hemp seeds a day is my protein source, and I use hemp oil based shampoos and soaps and all that good stuff. So it's just it just lands up being an educational thing, waking people up a little bit and helping them reconnect to the natural world.
Wow. So it's kind of like a big switch from, being a professional athlete to getting on this trail of advocacy and stuff like that. But like you were talking about using cannabis and stuff when you were coming up to the league and stuff like that. Do you think that the NHL should allow for cannabis use? Because I know that there has been some talk in other sports and football a little bit. Do you think that A, do guys use it now? B, are they getting tested? And C, should they be getting tested for it at all?
Yeah, well, I know guys are definitely using it. I mean, there was a good portion of the guys I played with, no matter what league I played in, East Coast Hockey League, Central Hockey League, American Hockey League, or NHL, there was the same amount of guys, that would, not openly do it, but, quietly as, amongst smaller groups. So I know for sure there's guys doing it. Absolutely, no matter what sport, people are consuming cannabis all across the globe, no matter who you are. That's for sure. Should they test for it? Absolutely not. Do they? They do, but I think it's kind of one of those turn a blind eye tests for cannabis specifically, THC specifically, because I know I got tested positive for sure every time. I would have tested positive for sure every time. But from what I understand, there's 3 different tests. It's A, B, and C. 1 is performance-enhancing drugs. 2 is street drugs, and C is just disappears. It doesn't actually get tested. So placebo, whatever you want to call it. And then 25-game suspension for performance-enhancing drugs, which they really target. Obviously, they're trying to find. That's what they're trying to find. 25-game suspension, no pay, and it becomes public. And then you have the street drugs, and they're looking for high amounts of hard drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, or something in that category. If you test positive for THC as well as those, you'll probably get a phone call from the substance abuse program and get thrown into that for 30 days, but you don't lose pay and it doesn't become public. I don't know anybody that's ever been tested positive for strictly THC and been into the substance abuse program. So I think there's like one of those, like, it's not like football where I think there's, 80 nanogram limit or whatever it is, and guys are getting busted for it. I don't know anybody that's been busted for THC. I do know of guys that have been tested positive for cocaine and ecstasy, high amounts, been thrown into the substance abuse program, and they also tested positive for THC. So then they just mentioned that during the call from the substance abuse program people. So it should be, obviously, in my opinion, it should be taken off. It shouldn't be a banned substance. It shouldn't be a bad substance on any level. It's a terrible policy, and it only inflicts more pain on people down the road, and more addiction and more spiritless, mindless medicine. So to me, it should be all legal. Everyone should have access to it. Doesn't matter if you're an athlete, doesn't matter if you're a soldier, a police officer, just a regular human being. Everyone should have access to it. It should be grown everywhere. It should be sold everywhere, in my opinion.
I definitely agree with you. One thing that's definitely a contributing factor towards why pro sports definitely don't allow for open use of THC and stuff like that is I've heard mumblings and read a few things about how people say that cannabis is actually performance enhancing.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Do you think that it's like to the point of something that could be a benefit on top of an athlete that's training naturally? Or naturally, I mean, not to say that cannabis is not natural, but I mean, using no supplemental health towards their athletic performance.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that statement. I'm not sure if you could actually call it performance enhancing, or if it just makes you
Cognitively enhance it.
Yeah, or if it just actually helps your body repair itself. You know what I mean? You're recovering better. So ultimately, it actually makes you a better athlete because you can perform at a higher level because you recovered and all that good stuff. I do know there's some science behind the focus on microdosing cannabis. In fact, I've experienced it myself, and it certainly does work. I'm not sure, in a sport like hockey, that I would ever actually play an NHL hockey game stoned. I've played them before in the East Coast Hockey League because, recovering from drinking the night before, but like, I'm not sure if I was really serious about me performing at the highest level ever, in a high-end competition, Olympics or, high-end athletics. I'm not sure that you would consume cannabis before competition. So as far as like performance enhancing, you think of that stuff as like actually, giving you something special in the day of performance. But I think it's more of a training tool, more of a recovery tool than an actual performance enhancer. But I understand that argument, but I don't look at it like, methamphetamine or, you know what I mean, or something like that, where like stimulates you so you can actually, you know what I mean, like you actually get more energy on the spot. When in fact I do understand that cannabis can give you energy, but not that type of energy that you'd want to be sharp every second in such an anaerobic quick game. I don't know. That's my personal opinion. In football too, I mean, you got to get in this mode. You know what I mean? I think cannabis puts you in this in a mode that some things are suitable for, for some things and not suitable for others. Like I, enjoy yoga, consuming cannabis and doing yoga and working out. I get dialed in. I'm focused. But like as far as like, now you got to be sharp. Now you got, especially in hockey, you got to receive a pass, make a pass, jump. All this different. You know what I mean? I'm not sure cannabis, unless it's totally microdosed, would be that beneficial before. Certainly after. I would certainly go CBD before, as far as just protecting the brain and helping with anti-inflammatory before the game's over. But no, it's not THC. I just can't see that taking that before a real competition, unless it's microdosed to the point where it's like somewhat insignificant that you can actually tell. But I don't know. I think we haven't really scratched the surface on that, because only in recreational states is that really, people are actually kind of doing that. You know what I mean? Otherwise it's just kind of like people experiencing it through their cannabis use on the black market. But I do know there's an element of, connection with the body and the mind when you're working out. Yoga specifically. I mean, let's talk about getting grounded. It's something that there's people that are doing it, the ganja yoga and whatever else. It's not like a new concept. But
it's interesting you say that about states that are recreationally legal. For pro athletes that play in those states, are there different rules set to someone playing sports in Texas, for instance?
No, I don't think so. I think that's what they're trying to fight for. If you're in a legal state, that you should be able to have access to it. But again, then there's going to be people in other states. I'm not sure that's fair or the right thing to do, because then you got all these other people that aren't even athletes that don't have access to it. It's like, what kind of message are you really sending?
I'm sure they'd want to be traded too.
What's that?
I'm sure they'd want to be traded too.
Exactly. I mean, that's a pretty, once you learn about this, it's pretty significant. You know what I mean? It's like managing your pain that way versus managing your pain with opioids and sleep pills and muscle relaxers. You know what I mean? It's a much different. Your outcome is totally different. The way you view life and the way you live and feel is totally different. I experienced it. I went through a rough patch when you start traveling, especially when you start flying and stuff like that. I wasn't screwing around and flying with cannabis, so you land up going to Old Faithful, which is protocol, which is pills. You know what I mean? And it's a dark hole. My story it never got as dark as some, but I was able to, bounce back and recover. But like, it swallows people up over and over and over again. So it's, cannabis is the opposite. You know what I mean? It's spirit, and it doesn't create that dark addictive hole or dependent hole that some of these other substances do, including alcohol. You know what I mean? And you talk about people that self-medicate and whatever you want to call it, like that's got to be the most destructive substance of them all, and it's glorified and it's sold everywhere, and we still have a problem with the hippie culture or just the laid back culture, like or whatever you want to call it. But like, I think society I see it evolving into. We are so disconnected. Like we're in a bad spot, most people, because we can't even understand that, you know, that food is meant to actually give us energy, and food is actually meant to heal us and you know, sustain us. We just eat food mindlessly. We just eat, you know, refined sugar, refined carbohydrates, totally processed foods, and we can't even figure out the foods. How can we figure out medicine? How can we make any sense of this? That this plant we were once told is terrible for us, and it's evil, and it's going to make you do all this crazy shit, and then all of a sudden that now it's a healing plant. Now it's, you know, now it's medicine. Now we're passing laws in each state, and we're trying to pass legalization. Like it always has been. That's what most people understand. It's like, it's not new science. It's bullshit. The science thing, the science card to me is like a bunch of shit. Like we know all this stuff. Like we've known this stuff for hundreds of years. You can get into thousands of years, but it's political. You know what I mean? It's like you can prove whatever you want to prove. You know, we always want, when people crave research, well, there's not going to be research until they change the laws. You know what I mean? And the research is, we know enough. I mean, Israel and all these countries have been growing and using this stuff for forever. I mean, Chinese medicine is like, just from pain management alone. I understand the science to, like, the cancer growth and the tumor growth and the epilepsy and stuff. Like, we need to know the science and all that, except for, like, if I gave a child with epilepsy having a seizure cannabis oil, her seizures would stop immediately or within a couple minutes. And that's a fact. Like, you see it all the time, but like, I don't need to know the science behind it to know that it works, and neither do the parents. You know, they're getting better relief from that, which is, you know, in their perspective, an underground thing. They're getting more relief from that than any of the legal protocols, treatments, whatever you want to call them, that are offered. You know what I mean? There's something very wrong with that, in my opinion. You know what I mean? You got to fight for this, and so, like, for me, it's like I never thought in my whole life that I'd ever be supporting a plant so much. But like, you sit back and you look at everything that's wrong in this world, and then cannabis and hemp somehow is the solution for it all. It's just weird. You know what I mean? It's like we got people starving all over. Well, why don't you give them a crop that they can feed all their people with, they can clothe all their people with, and they could build structures with the same exact thing, and they have medicine. Well, that means that would be meaning they're self-sufficient and self-sustainable. We can't have that. We got to have them dependent on our shit. You know, we got to sell them stuff. We got to sell them. We got to give them, you know what I mean? We got to rip them off. Like that's a system. It's not set up for success. It's set up for failure. And no matter how you cut it, cannabis is somehow intertwined in this mess. Is a very, very threatening thing for businesses and corporations, because it affects everything. Because it's that powerful. It's that good. And I don't think we've scratched the surface on what it can really do as a solution to a lot of these global issues we got going on right now.
Well, it definitely ties into, you know, what you do and what you're all about, right? So kind of talk about hemp heals. So this is everything you're talking about, right? So this is just clean medicine, you know,
pretty
holistic
much
approach, you know, keeping your body healthy with what comes from the ground, what we already know.
Exactly, and that's what hemp heals is really all about. It's primarily focusing on industrial hemp as a viable resource, giving a crop back to the farmers, a clean crop, renewable, sustainable crop. They don't require pesticides and that whole spiel. So a clean agriculture, and then getting into the uses of, like, you know, how it can be beneficial, you know, as a substitute, say, in textiles, substitute to synthetic fibers like nylon or cotton, which is a really dirty, pesticide-ridden crop. So, you know, so on that front, and then you talk about building materials. There's a ton of toxic building materials and toxic compounds that they use that, you know, in building and wherever else. Well, you get hempcrete. I mean, I've done different building workshops with hempcrete. It's the hemp hurd mixed with lime and some other stuff, and all of a sudden you got this extremely durable structure. And so, you know, on that end, and then as far as biomass, like, you know what I mean, we're at war and drilling for oil and fracking and doing all this dirty stuff, and you could have a crop like hemp that could be grown for biomass. I mean, Henry Ford built a car out of hemp and ran it on hemp biomass in 1937. So we already know this is a possibility, and it has been done. But again, it's like, that makes too much sense. That's too clean. That's too healthy. That's not part of the plan. So, you know, with synthetics rule the world, and you know, it's chemicals, and and unfortunately, it's just the way it is. So it's like something natural seems so foreign to people because we've been, in the last 150 years, we're so conditioned to just appreciate and accept chemicals and plastics and all this, all this fossil fuel stuff, which, I think we need to move on. If we want to sustain life here, we need to move on and get back to basics here and do what our ancestors and everyone else have done forever since we've been around this planet, is grow hemp. Our forefathers, everyone, you go back in the history of American history, you go back further than that, in Chinese history and everything, cannabis is, that's what it is. So Hemp Heals is dedicated to, all those things, the agriculture, the farming, the uses, but also to really promote the therapeutic, CBD and the nutritional profile of hemp seeds as far as health. I mean, you are what you eat. So it starts with an everyday nutrition, and that's hemp seeds is a great digestible protein. We're so conditioned to think that we need to eat all this animal protein, and if you look at how some of these animals are actually farmed, it's hard to even call it farming. It's factory farming, where they stand in their own shit and eat genetically modified corn, and they get injected with all kinds of different hormones and steroids and whatever else to just beef them up and get them on, get them killed as quickly as possible. That's it's spiritless meat. It's not, what I mean? It's transfer of energy. It's terrible. So, I'm not saying go vegan, but I think there has to be some sort of connection to your meat and animal protein. Go hunt or go fish. Just try and find clean areas to fish and try and find some nice lean venison or whatever else. But there's a connection there when you actually do it yourself and actually actually appreciate the life of that animal. And it's a good transfer of energy. And so I go plant-based mostly because I think we've lost sight of what we're eating. You know what I mean? We lost sight of what we're doing. We lost sight of the medicine that could work for us. And I always think that I always say that cannabis is like the bridge to the natural world. It's going to help people connect to other plants and roots and herbs as far as healing. I eat ginger every day. I eat turmeric root every day, but I don't call it medical turmeric. I don't call it medical ginger. But they do have, quote unquote medical properties or healing properties, high anti-inflammatory properties, turmeric and ginger, and help with digestion and all this good stuff, where you could be crushing Pepto-Bismol and all this, again, being consumers, where you can just get back to Mother Nature and, grow a garden and, go to the Whole Food store and actually heal with what you're eating on a daily basis. And then incorporating hemp seeds, and incorporating hemp seed oil, and then incorporating CBD oil, all as a wellness tool. Prevention of disease. Now we want to resort to medical cannabis once we're already sick and just replacing big pharma with cannabis. That's great. I love it. Except for we're missing the whole prevention of disease. You prevent disease with environment, with your immediate environment, what you eat, how you surround what you surround yourself with, what you put on your body, under your armpits, what women put on their face for makeup. All that stuff. That's all at play. But just the industry. If we're constantly around toxic industry, then we're going to get sick, and our water is going to get poisoned. And so, getting back to just clean agricultural practices and just as a total wellness package, that's what Hemp Heals is. It's kind of laying it all out there. This is the way we need to be. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to be growing our own hemp, and cannabis, and taking care of our areas. You guys are in Canada. I'm in the U.S. You take care of your area. It's what I mean. It's the local farmer attitude. It's taking care of your own and being self-sufficient and helping your people. And every community did that. We'd be what I mean. We don't need foreign garbage. You know what I mean? We take care of ourselves. But I understand the world we're living in. We live in the West, and it's much deeper. It's much deeper than all that. You know what I mean? Once you start incorporating money and politics, but at least I can promote what I believe is the right path, the solution. Is it going to change my lifetime? Probably not, but it'll change some. You know what I mean? I'll help somebody, and I'll help change some policies. But as far as the stranglehold in this plant, I mean, in Canada, they've been growing hemp for 22 years, but only for seed oil and seed. That's it. Burning at the end of the growing season and wasting the fiber, wasting the herd. Wasting, you know what I mean? That's such a waste of a resource. but that's politics, and they're going to stranglehold it for a long time. And it's a powerful thing.
Definitely, and I definitely agree with all the properties behind it. They could give back to everybody and make things so much easier. Just to touch on, personal belief a little bit. If you would have had, the information that you have now, if you would have had somebody else give you the information that Hemp Heals and the other organizations that you're affiliated with have given you now, do you think it would have changed your professional career? And do you think it could change the professional careers of the guys that are following? Like, do you think that if, the studs that are playing in the league now get a hold of this, concept, and I'm sure they're already adapting it, do you think it can improve performance? Do you think it can, change the next generation of athletes?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. For my own personal story, I'm not sure I would change anything, only because, I think that's the beauty of life, is that, you learn from your mistakes, and then you have a platform or a story to build off and do something right.
And not everyone scores a goal on Carey Price.
Yeah, exactly. Right. One huge one.
It's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be a highlight reel. So I lost my thought there, but what were we just talking about right before that? I was
basically asking if it would have changed your your approach to it if you would have had the information you have before.
Yeah, so for me personally, I think that's the beauty of life, is it sculpts you. You learn from your mistakes, and you have the ability to teach others and teach people the right way. So I think that's, like, for me, this is where I need to be. But I think, like, on the other end of it, the people that I have the ability to help, and the teams and the players and everyone coming up, that would absolutely help them, and help them in so many different ways on so many different levels that they might not even really understand, because once they start doing it, it becomes so normal to them. But just from a concussion standpoint, protecting the brain, just from managing pain without having the chance of getting addicted to opioids, like those are two big ones. You know what I mean? That that really start mental health issues and addiction and depression issues. But there's protecting the physical body. You know what I mean? You get cannabinoids in you, get anti-inflammatories in you. So maybe you dodge an injury or two, a soft tissue injury. Maybe you're able to recover quicker, and you're able to perform a little bit better than the next guy the next night, as opposed to having lactic acid and not feeling great. You rested a little bit better. I think all those elements, like, promote greatness and recovery and ultimately performance. But, like, as we talked about earlier, I'm not sure it really does increase performance on the spot, but I think everything leading up to it does. So I think, like, there's such a huge market for it, even if it's not even in the THC, just CBD. You know what I mean? Protecting your brain. And there's CBD companies, CBD water. Getting it on the front end of it, protecting your brain before you actually have the head trauma, and then again helping with the inflammation before you actually have the inflammation, because your body's in a constant state of healing. So if you can keep getting these cannabinoids in you, and then the recovery process, you can accelerate that, or minimize inflammation. To me, you have a better chance of performing at a higher level the next day. So as an athlete, that's exactly what you seek. It's just a lot of us are, we have been fundamentally misled. You know what I mean? And you follow the professionals, you follow the science, and you follow this bullshit, and it's all wrong, or 20 years late, outdated. You know what I mean? And it's like, so, like, cannabis and hemp in sports as a recovery tool, like, that is like progressive thinking. But it's old as the earth. You know what I mean? It's like, this isn't new. Like, we just have to kind of bring it out of the darkness and explain to people, like, listen, like if we need a science to prove to us that cannabis helps with pain, well, you know what I mean? Like, go pound sand somewhere else, because we already know that. You know what I mean? Like, and they're going to find out, the actual percentage of THC that's going to help with a certain condition, all this stuff. But I think, like, the beauty of cannabis, that's the mystery with cannabis. It's just like, it's kind of trial and error. Everyone's different. Everyone, gets cannabinoids affect them differently. So you have to find different strains, and different strains work differently for different people, and terpene blends and whatever else. So I think that's the beauty of holistic medicine, is that it's not a one size fits all approach. We're going to give you a bottle of pills, and you're gonna be like, here you go, take 4 of these a day with food, 2 without. You know what I mean? And I think that everyone's gonna be okay. And I think the cannabis is we haven't even scratched the surface of the depths we could take this as a healing plant. a lot of them we're just kind of treating the symptoms. But like, what about like getting deep within and you know, again, starving cancer and doing stuff like that, as opposed to just, you know, kind of like, you know, using it as a Band-Aid for a lot of wear and tear and stuff that we could have prevented that we've done in our whole lives. So I think we need to change the way I talk about prevention of disease. We need to try to change it from the front end, and that starts with our diet. It starts with the way we live, and, you know, the clothes we wear and the stuff we put on our skin, and the industry that we live around or are involved in. And then the medicine is like, if you need it, you know, there it is. But, you know, the one thing we don't talk about at all, really, and unless you read books about it and you talk about your friends with it, but like, is the spiritual use of cannabis. And to me, that's like, I hate the word medical. I really do. I don't even love the word recreational, but I just think it's like, it's just one of those things, you know, you call it therapeutic. It's recreational. It's like recreational beer drinking. It's like, I don't look at cannabis like that, because it does add, you know, it does add spirit, where it puts a smile on your face, makes you feel good. It's not destructive. You're not going to wake up in the morning feeling like a bag of shit. You know, you get a couple laughs, and it just helps, you know, take a load off. You know, to me, that's like, you want to call it recreational, you can argue that same exact feeling is medical. But like, what about just like, you know, what about just like, you know, just about like, just making you feel better, just helps you relax. And I understand you have to separate it all now, because it's like, well, people get mad at you if you just smoke a joint just because you want to. It just makes you feel better, you know. God forbid you do something like that, but like, well, now you got cancer, so now you have the ability to use cannabis. Like, what the hell is that mentality? You know what I mean? Where it's totally normal to go crush 12 beers, smoke cigarettes, to eat opioids, to crush Coke and Pepsi products. You know what I mean? Refined sugar out of our ass, and, you know, that's normalized behavior. So, you know, it's just, we need to reconnect all together and look at how we're living, look at how we're doing industry, look at how we're polluting ourselves, and we got to clean it up. We got to clean it up from top to bottom, in my opinion.
Well, are you happy about the NFL's decision to work with their players to study the use of cannabis for treatment?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, like, how long is that gonna go? You know what I mean? Like, we already know that there's a reason why people gravitate toward this plant, regardless whether it's legal or not. It's because it works. It's real. So, like, you know, to have some white coat and be like, oh yeah, well, yeah, we just spent our last 2 years proving that cannabis does help with pain. Well, no shit. Like, well, thanks. You just wasted 2 years again of how many guys got affected by the opioid crisis and whatever else in between. So, like, I think it's a good step, but like how long is that gonna go for? You know what I mean? And like, and
it's a good step for the future that doesn't really help the past.
Exactly. And to me, I think you can facilitate this a lot easier. You know what I mean? I think there's ways. I think there's ways the NFL could, you know what I mean, quietly, turn a blind eye to it. Just change the nanograms to something where it's like totally realistic that they're not going to get busted for it, or just say you're going to test for it and don't test for it, like in hockey. So guys, like, you know what I mean? It's like you kind of feel somewhat safe of like trying to take care of your body and do what's right without having to worry about losing your job over something ridiculous. It's just, you know what I mean? It's so wrong on so many levels, and that goes for, you know, not even just sports, because people lose their jobs all the time for testing positive for THC. We don't test. We don't drug test for sleeping pills. We don't drug test for alcohol and opioids, which cause more drowsiness and sleep than cannabis. So it's like we act like you know, like this is the one substance on earth that causes, you know, drowsiness and all this stuff. It's like, why don't we have DUIs for all that shit too? You know, everyone's like, well, what are we gonna do? We're gonna legalize cannabis. Now we're gonna have check stops everywhere, seeing everyone's high. Well, it's like, if you look at the culture of addicted the Western world, it's everyone's driving around on some sort of stimulant or you know, opioid or sleep aid or muscle relaxer. You know what I mean? It's like, so like, if you want to call a spade, you got to break all substances into the mix if you want to talk about that stuff. But to me, it's a step in the right direction with the NFL. But like, come on, like, you know what I mean? The cat's out of the bag. Like, we need to do something, you know. And I understand it's a corporate entity. It needs to run parallel to the medical establishment and the federal law. So until that changes, you're not going to see a significant change in anything.
And I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but I've seen some insane percentage of NFL players that come out of the league with traumatic brain injury that's like directly treated by medical cannabis.
Yeah.
And not only just talking about NFL guys, like I know in Canada it's not like this, but in the US, like you often have to take a piss test to get a job at a drugstore or at a grocery store. Like the whole world is blind, not just sports too, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah,
it's sad. It really is sad because that's the way they control people's decisions. You know what I mean? It's easy that way. If you put a little bit of fear in somebody, they'll be like, "Oh shit, I'm going to lose my job, so I better not do that. I'll just drink instead. I'll just take pills instead." That's all. It's all perfectly lined up that way.
And no piss tests for those two.
Yeah, exactly right. The most destructive substances. But or at least we're changing. I mean, Canada's going to be legalizing it fully, and the federal government's they just put in a bill that's hopefully something happens here in the next couple of years. But
and you were telling us you were telling us about your organization you started with a couple other ex-pro athletes. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm one of 6 co-founders of it's a 501c3 nonprofit called Athletes for Care, and we have guys like Frank Shamrock and Boss Rutan from the UFC to Marvin Washington, Jake Plummer, and Eugene Monroe in the NFL. There's only 4 NHL guys: myself, Darren McCarty, Kevin McClellan, and Kenny Linsman, and it lands up being a platform for current athletes, retired athletes of all levels, as a holistic alternative healing platform to manage their physical disabilities, physical acute injuries, as well as mental health issues, as well as addiction issues. So taking care of it and healing the body through cannabis and hemp, as well as yoga, meditation, nutritional healing, botanical healing, all that good stuff. Changing their environment and giving them purpose. And that's where, the other side of it is giving them purpose is, introducing them to job opportunities, investment opportunities, speaking engagements, and kind of, getting these guys to, obviously feel and heal the benefits of cannabis, but also to, maybe they can take their platform they've created as an athlete and help others. It's really what it's all about is, there's a ton of people in need of cannabis and a ton of people struggling in life and hurting, and I think athletes have a platform and a voice that a lot of people respect. So that good stuff. So that's what ultimately the organization is. We do a lot of panels and speaking engagements at different conferences just to get the word out. Is talking about CBD and concussions and CTE, protecting the brain from physical sports like hockey, football, and UFC. And then just talking about just overall cannabis as a recovery tool. CBD and THC both combined is helping manage pain, starting point, helping just relax the body, and promoting a good night's rest. To me, those are huge pieces of the puzzle. So lots to learn, lots to teach, and we're gonna keep growing. I think there's no other national sports group like this that can is doing what we're doing. We got a couple good board members. Lindy Snyder, who I do work with, she's the daughter of the late Ed Snyder, who used to own the Philadelphia Flyers and started the Philadelphia Flyers back in 74 or whatever it was. And so she's a huge cannabis advocate, and obviously with her family in the space, in the sports space, that she feels like she needs to help these guys. Too many guys go down with addiction issues and just mental health issues, anxiety and depression and addiction all intertwined, and it gets dirty and messy. So this is the clean alternative that can kind of help people, help put it in perspective, and just relieve any sort of pain, and just help increase quality of life.
Well, Riley, I love your organization. It sounds amazing, and with what we're doing here, we'd love to be a part of it and promote it in any way we can, have you guys on to talk about your progress and all that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's it's something, I think it's somewhat unique, but I think a lot of people are catching on. I think like athletes, they put themselves through so much wear and tear that naturally I think they gravitate towards alternative healing or cannabis and whatnot more than others, because it's hard to wake up and do it every day, and and to stay focused and also manage stiffness and acute pain and muscles, and so I think there's such a huge market for this, and it can help so many athletes. Everyone plays sports, but again, talking about this in a respectful manner. We're not talking about just firing up bongs. This is talking about again, CBD, talking about protecting the brain. We always talk about helmets. Why don't we talk about actually protecting the brain with compounds that are actually patented by the U.S. government and have neuroprotective properties that have been proven? Israel is using it on their soldiers. We need to look into this stuff. Like, again, this is actually progressive thinking, but it's old. It's old thinking. So it's we need to talk about all this stuff. You know what I mean? If you really want to help the cause, and you really want to help kids not have alcohol and opioid addictions, if you really want to help kids be the best they can be and have responsible substance use and teach them the right way, like, this is the way to do it. You know what I mean? And with respect, and teach about the differences of CBD versus THC, but how they can help. And again, I think we don't have any respect for ourselves. We don't have any respect for substances, and that's the problem. Is that it doesn't matter what substance you lay in front of somebody, we'll find a way to abuse it. And you see that with food and sugar and alcohol and tobacco and the rest of it. So it's just it's an individualized problem. Like, we need to reconnect to ourselves and reconnect to the natural world, before we can figure out how to not abuse something. So I think that's a part of what we're doing, is that that it stems from within. A lot of the mental health issues and depression issues it's deep-seated stuff, that whether it's an event that happened, or an accumulation of things, or just de-spiriting yourself so much from food and diet and pills and all these synthetics that de-spirit you, that ultimately instill depression, and is getting to the bottom of it. And so the sports world needs this. You see too many guys go down. Too many guys I played with and played against. Like, it's the same negative story here, and I'm tired of hearing those stories. If I can help somebody, with all this, that's the play.
And you know what? Honestly, it starts with you guys, right? Like, your whole idea behind Athletes for Care, getting athletes involved, setting a good example for the next generation. Like, a lot of the times when people start using stuff like that, using stuff that's bad for them, it's because they've seen someone cool do it before them. So, you guys are, leading things in the right direction that way.
Yeah, thanks.
I just want to talk to you a little bit about hockey before we wrap up here. I just wanted to, you were a tough guy for a long time. I just want to know who you thought was the toughest guy you ever had to square up with.
Well, there was probably 5 guys that I would kind of lump in the same category, but I think like Donald Brashear gave me the hardest go, just his style of fighting, how strong he was, and a little bit outmatched size wise, but but I also fought George LaRock, which is obviously one of the toughest guys, and I think his style of fighting I ended up having better fights with. Was able to open up a little bit more instead of getting pulled in tight and bear hugged and then smashed up against the glass, whatever. So. But I had some good ones. I think those 2 are probably the 2 toughest, just because the mass and their experience that I had fought those guys at the time, and obviously guys like Brian McGrattan and Colt Knorr. And
there's one guy,
Matt Karkner. What's that?
There's one guy I keep seeing. I saw some reoccurring stuff with. I was wondering if you want to speak about Andre Roy a little bit.
Well, you know what? I think it was probably blown out a little of proportion that night. But so I'd fought this guy a couple times before the actual incident that you're talking about. A couple games before that, I fought him. So we play in Philly. It's actually MS Awareness Night. So my sister's in town for it. I plan on putting on a show. I fought him before, so I expect him to fight. He's a gamer, and you know what I mean. So we fight. And it was a draw. It was a decent fight, but he gets his arm out of his sleeve. Wears a Bagger jersey, and then he was able to punch and get a couple shots that I didn't love. So plan on fighting him again, later that game, basically the exact same spot we fought earlier. And so we line up in a scrum. We step away from the scrum, and then we square off. And I go in for the grab. I'm trying to grab his lead hand, and he kind of does what he did in the first fight. He kind of pulls out of his jersey, trying to get his arm free on my grab. So you know what I mean? It's almost like I facilitated him getting his arm out. So as I grab onto the front of his jersey, or the lead hand of his jersey, I let go. And he tries to pull out, and his arm gets caught. So I go in and I tag him like two quick punches and put him down. So he was all pissed off. He's all pissed off. First of all, he lost the fight, and then the jumbotron, the arena vision people kept pumping the video over and over and over again. It was like there was like a camera like right in the corner of right where the fight was. So it was like perfect, like, you know, one punch shot. They kept playing it over and over and over and over. So he was sitting over there, and he claims he's pissed off because I forced him into the second fight, which I found out later. But anyways, he's standing up on the bench there between TV timeouts, and he's giving me like, I'm gonna slit your throat, like I'm gonna kill you sign. And I was like, yeah, giving him like, you know, the hands or whatever. So TV timeout, he jumps over the boards and comes over to the bench, and he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, and he's like just like trying to get at me. The refs grab him and then bring him back over and sit him down. Tortorella's the coach, so Tortorella grabs him and like basically like chokes him out from behind and like settles him down. They wound up sending him home after that game, and he never played another game that year with Tampa. And then he wound up signing in Calgary the next year. But I think he was no one likes to lose a fight. And I think he was just pissed off because it was, you know, they were kind of rubbing it in his face.
Well broadcasted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was
still
it.
all over
I
the
got
internet.
I got no personal beef with him. That was just, you know, on ice incident that, you know, he just took exception to.
And it's still all over the internet.
Yeah, right. It was definitely a highlight of mine, so I'll take it.
I love
got
it,
some
man.
good footage from a couple angles. So.
It'd be
Audio.
it'd be even better if he was, pro keeping cannabis illegal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Well, Riley, this has been absolutely great, and like I said, we'd love to have you back on to follow your progress and talk about your organization as you move forward.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, keep me posted. I'd love to.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot for coming on.
No problem. You guys take care.
You too.
All right, see ya.
You